Thank you, Chair. The living wage is a win-win for both employers and employees. For employers, it can help recruitment, retention and productivity. In short, it makes good commercial sense. I was proud to announce during Living Wage Week in 2018 that the London Stadium is now an accredited living wage employer. We're still working to get the pay rise to everyone. This will happen before the end of the year and will be backdated to August. I've always believed it's important to lead by example, and that's why one of my first tasks was to ensure that all GLA staff were being paid the London living wage. I continue to support the living wage campaign and have committed to once again provide them with free advertising space on the TFL network throughout this month to coincide with Living Wage Week. I will continue to urge employers to become living wage accredited through a variety of channels, and especially those institutions such as big businesses, sports clubs and venues, museums and so forth that London has identified with and which can play such an influential role. I was delighted recently when, following a letter I sent, Fulham Football Club announced they would be seeking accreditation. I've also written again to London's other Premier League clubs and will continue to write to other key employers, urging them to do the same. I am deeply concerned about the challenges faced by the large number of businesses in the capital who trade with and recruit from the EU. It is my responsibility to stand up for these businesses, and I'm dismayed that the UK government has failed to help them prepare. Over 80% of living wage accredited employers nationally are already SMEs, and although small businesses are facing many pressures, I have confidence they'll be able to apply the new rate within the next 6 months.
Well, thank you for that. And could I go back to the report of Professor Alston, UN Special Rapporteur, that you mentioned earlier on? Do you agree with his conclusion that about the impact of in-work poverty? For example, families with two parents working full-time at the national minimum wage, deceptively rebounded by the Conservatives as a national living wage when it isn't, are still 11% short of what's needed to raise a child. And that this shows the necessity of paying the London living wage, but the proportion of jobs in London paid below the living wage has gone up. They're now being £10.55 per hour. So 1 in 5 jobs, 820,000, are still paid less.
I agree with everything you've said. I think the idea that you can increase people's remuneration by simply rebranding the national minimum wage as the national living wage and expecting things to improve is ridiculous. And that's why I'd encourage all employers to look at the benefits those businesses that pay the living wage have seen in relation to morale, lower sick leave, easier recruitment, retention and progression. It really is a win-win.
And would you also agree with the conclusion of the UN Rapporteur that poverty in the UK since 2010 has been a political choice, and that, quote, austerity could easily have spared the poor if the political will had existed to do so? And given the failure of the Conservatives to address growing poverty, the London living wage is vital to the well-being of less well-off families in London in overcoming the current shortcomings of the social security system, especially the rollout of universal credit across the capital.
Well, absolutely. There is a cause and effect in relation to government announcing policies and the impact it has on the people of our city and our country. And a direct consequence of the budget in 2010 and subsequent budgets from this government has been more people going into poverty than would otherwise have been the case. But also what should worry us is, going forward, the evidence is the continuation of these policies will lead to more people being in poverty than would otherwise be the case. And look, the welfare benefits reform is obviously a sensible thing when it's done correctly and done in a sensible way. We now know from the pilots that universal credit leads to there being more food banks, more rent arrears, more families having problems. Knowing this, rather than the government looking at the evidence and pausing it, they're rolling it out across the country. And that's why it's important for the new Secretary of State to look at the evidence and to do a U-turn on her government's policies in relation to universal credit.